Original post, April 10, 2024. I 30 female, spoiled my friend's bachelorette party and now am being kicked out of the wedding party. She is one of my close friends and I have been feeling devastated and guilty by the turn of events since last weekend. I am using fake names since I want to be anonymous. My friend Joanna, 29 female, is getting married, and I was incredibly happy for her. Joanna is my coworker and we have been working together for the last 7 years. She is one of my closest friends and I was so honored when she asked me to be a bridesmaid for her wedding. I also know her fiancé as he also works with us and is a friend of mine. Most of the other bridesmaids are Joanna's college friends and they have all been nice to me. They planned a nice weekend bachelorette party for her last weekend. We rented an Airbnb, and the plan was to hang out, drink, and play games all night. There were around 10 girls and all of them were the same age as me. We reached there in the morning and spent the day by the pool. In the evening, the plan was to dress classy in cocktail dresses and hang out. Things were going well, and we were playing the normal bachelorette party games and having fun. Around 10 p.m., there was a knock on the door and the maid of honor made us all be quiet for a surprise. She had hired 2 male strippers for the bachelorette party. I am married and I was shocked as no one mentioned this was the plan. I was uncomfortable, but decided not to cause a scene as others were screaming and happy. However, as soon as they started dancing, the strippers started calling out to some girls and the girls were getting very handsy with them. At this point, I excused myself that I needed water and went to the pool area. I was uncomfortable at this point and called my husband. I told him what was going on and he told me that he trusts me and not to do something I am uncomfortable with just because of peer pressure. I told him to stay on the phone and talk to me. After around 15 minutes, 3 more girls also came out where I was sitting and sat next to me. They were also uncomfortable with the turn of events. I told them I was talking to my husband, and they also took the opportunity to call their partners or text them. They told me that they were also not told about the strippers, and the maid of honor took the liberty to arrange that as a surprise for everyone. After a while, the noise from inside started going down, and we thought the strippers had left. We went inside to check and there was a bunch of not safe for work stuff going on. I was shocked to see that Joanna was with one of the guys. I screamed in disbelief and that startled her. I just got out of the room and me and the other 3 girls went for a drive. We returned after an hour around midnight. The guys had left, and all the girls were sitting around as if they had seen a ghost. After we left, it seemed like Joanna suddenly had an anxiety attack. She started crying and they kicked out all the strippers. She wanted to talk to her fiancé, but the girls calmed her down and kept her from calling him and telling him what happened. Her friends then took Joanna to the bedroom and the maid of honor told us that it was rude for us to leave in the middle of the party. She looked at me and said, "You had to be the center of everything. This was Joanna's night and you ruined it." I was too shocked to say anything and just decided to call it a night and went to sleep. The drive back was awkward, to say the least. The 3 girls who followed me outside decided to carpool with me, and I didn't have to talk to the maid of honor or Joanna the next day. On Monday, Joanna skipped work and called me in the evening. She said that the other bridesmaids did not feel comfortable with me being in the wedding party and if it was okay with me. She also told me that she hopes I follow the girl code and not talk about what happened over the weekend. She said that she was drunk, had no idea what was planned and just went with the flow. That evening, the maid of honor sent me a threatening message that I ruined a perfect weekend for Joanna and should not talk about what happened to anyone. I have already told my husband and he said that I should just step away from the drama. He also offered to go on a vacation during the wedding weekend and skip the wedding as Joanna may not want me to be there. I feel so bad for what happened over the weekend. Joanna has been actively avoiding me since Monday. I was so happy for her, but I just cannot unsee what I saw over the weekend. I also know how much Joanna adores her fiancé, and it must have been just a lapse of judgment for her in that moment. I do not know how I should have acted, but the male strippers just crossed my line. Am I the asshole to ruin Joanna's bachelorette party and was there any other way I would have acted in this situation? The guilt is just killing me, and I don't know what I should do now. Relevant comments. Comment 1. You need to make her tell her fiancé or do it yourself if she won't. All of you are getting manipulated by the maid of honor right now. Please demonstrate some decency and character, do the right thing. OP. As I said before, I am so torn on what to do. Some of the girls who stayed back in the room are married and have kids. My one confession could destroy a lot of lives. I know what the right thing to do on paper, but I do not want to do something I regret later. My husband has been constantly talking to me and trying to help me with my anxiety. Comment 2. Did you decide what to do? I would feel uncomfortable working with Joanna and her fiancé after what transpired. I hope you're doing okay. OP. I have not told the fiancé yet, however, I talked to him today and he was asking me why I stepped down from being a bridesmaid. I told him he should ask Joanna about it as I didn't want to talk about it. I feel so bad too, and I see him every day at work. It's such a messed up situation and my husband is trying to calm me down and think through the consequences before I take any step. Comment 3. You see this dude every day? What the frick, why wouldn't you tell him? Edit, why doesn't anyone care about the fiancé? Update 1, April 16, 2024. I wrote a post last week regarding my friend Joanna's bachelorette party going south after her maid of honor decided to surprise everyone by inviting male strippers and the bride decided to have fun. I had left the room immediately with a few other girls and was uncomfortable with this. I had asked for advice on how to proceed since the guilt of witnessing the events and not telling the fiancé was killing me. I wanted to give the update since a lot of people are messaging me to tell the finance. The bachelorette party happened 2 weekends ago. Last week was super awkward. Joanna asked me on Monday if it's okay if I step down from being a bridesmaid. I agreed and my husband also suggested we skip the wedding altogether and was supportive of me. I did not tell the groom, whose name is Jason, but he came to me on Thursday and asked me why I stepped down from being a bridesmaid. I told him I did not want to discuss the issue and Joanna knew the reason. I did not want to lie to him, but also did not have the courage to tell him the truth. On Sunday morning, Joanna called me and asked me if she and Jason could come to her house as Jason wanted to talk to me. She sounded like she was crying on the other side. I said okay and told her to come in sometime since my husband and I were at the gym. Jason and Joanna both came together, and we invited them to come in. Jason was stone-faced and it took a few minutes before anyone said a word. Jason looked at me and told me that he considered me his friend and wanted to know exactly what happened that night. I told him the whole story about how we had a nice weekend, until the strippers came. I told him that I left the room after some girls started dancing with them as I did not feel comfortable. My husband was also backing up my story as I was on a call with him the whole time after that. I told him how me and the other girls went in after 30 minutes and saw one of Joanna's friends who was married, was giving one of the strippers a blowjob. Joanna was also dancing with one of the strippers. He was completely naked at this point, and I was very shocked and screamed Joanna's name. I lied slightly, because from my point of view, I could see the stripper's back and Joanna was sitting in front of him, and something might be going on. However, I was not sure and did not tell Jason about it. I told him I left after that and came back to Joanna crying and wanting to call Jason. Joanna started talking at this point and told Jason that she was also surprised to see the strippers and did not want to spoil the party. It was the maid of honor's idea, and the other 3 friends, all married, had paid for them. That was the reason none of the others knew about it, as it never showed up in the expenses we were tracking. Joanna thought they were just strippers and not sex workers and got carried away and did not stop them. When I screamed, Joanna suddenly realized how wrong everything was. I left and Joanna realized how bad the situation looked. She wanted to call Jason immediately to let him know what happened, but her friends stopped her from doing that because they were worried their husbands would find out. Joanna was begging Jason to trust her, and she did not kiss or do anything inappropriate with the strippers. Jason was really upset, but he asked me if Joanna really was crying and tried to call him. I confirmed it as the other girls had told me that. Jason hugged Joanna and told her that he trusts her and loves her. However, she must cut the maid of honor and the other 3 friends as they invited sex workers for the bachelorette party. He was also adamant that Joanna told her friends' husbands regarding the incident, but Joanna was very reluctant to do that. Joanna said she would stop hanging out with those girls and came and hugged me. She was very apologetic, and I could see from her eyes how relieved she was. She apologized to me for putting me in that situation. Overall, she dodged a huge bullet. I really hope I did the right thing and Joanna will never do something stupid like this in future. From what I understand, one of the other girls told Jason about the incident after he got suspected, and he confronted Joanna. I again wanted to thank everyone for their suggestions, and they helped me think through the whole situation. Story 2, am I the asshole for calling off my engagement because my ex-fiancé invited my dad to our wedding? Original post, April 3, 2024. Planning to delete my account but I need outside perspective, and I can't go to friends or family. I 29 female, met my ex 32 male, in college. He knew all about my troubled relationship with my dad. Growing up, my dad struggled with addiction, cheated on my mom, and left us in debt. I only learned about his emotional and physical abuse towards my mom and siblings when I was much older. As the youngest, my memories are fuzzy, so my family hid this from me, thinking it was best because they wanted me to have a good relationship with him. My dad wasn't actively involved in my life, and we didn't see each other often, even though my mom let him come by whenever he wanted. He would promise to take me out on weekends, but he'd never show up. When we did go out, he would yell at servers and threaten to beat them. He'd go 100 miles an hour with me in the car, and he'd always criticize my mom to me. I have so many stories, but two extreme ones are the times he tackled a boy my age for talking to me and started beating him. He left him bleeding on the floor and dragged me to the car, crying and shaking. The other is the time he took me out for my 15th birthday, and he abandoned me at the mall. It was about 3 cities over from where I lived, and I didn't know what to do, so I decided to try to take the bus home. I got lost and called my best friend. She and her older brother went to pick me up. That was the last time I saw him. The crazy thing was that at the end of each visit, he'd tell me to wait in the car for hours while he went to his friend's house. I just listened to music. It would be maybe 2 to 3 hours of us hanging out and another 4 to 5 hours of me sitting in a car. My mom thought we'd be hanging out all day, but obviously not. Despite my dad's behavior, we still spoke on the phone from time to time. I felt bad that he didn't have anyone in his life. He'd tell me that all his family hated him, and I thought that was really sad. Then one day my mom decided to divorce him. He refused to give her the divorce until I stepped in. I saw that my mom was finally confident enough to take this step and thought it was so cruel that he wouldn't do this for her. I basically told him that I thought it was unfair and I would like him to please do it for me. He agreed, and I thought that our relationship would improve because he showed me that he really cared about me. Yet even after the divorce, he remained distant and had another child. He only reached out when he needed help with paperwork, writing emails, or other favors. Eventually, he crossed a line by asking me to forge my mom's signature, and I told him I couldn't help him. He called me a stupid bitch like my mother. I told my family. He did a lot of reckless things, but this was the first time he ever called me a name. That's when they told me the truth about his abuse and drug use. I knew he cheated, and we went through financial issues, but I didn't realize the severity of the situation. I realized that all the times he made it seem like he was just disliked and going through a rough time, he actually was just trying to get sympathy from me. It wasn't that he was hated because he cheated, it was because of all the other crap he did. When I tried calling him, he texted me that I was ungrateful since I couldn't help with one little thing, considering he did me a favor by giving my mom the divorce, and I owed him. He blocked my number, and his baby mama ended up texting me telling me that all the times he wanted to go out with me he just used me as an excuse to borrow his sister's car, and he actually just needed the car to drive to his dealer's house for drugs or her house for sex. I confided in my ex about my dad's manipulative behavior and my decision to cut him out of my life when we started getting serious. My ex understood and supported me. I feel like there are two versions of my father. The one I saw was reckless and careless, which I chalked up to him being lonely and missing his family. And a more darker version I never had to encounter. I realized I should have said something about all the things he did, but that I was just trying to make my dad and my family happy. He helped me get out of my people-pleasing ways. He helped me stick by my decisions and not feel guilty for saying no. He had a great relationship with my family, which made me feel even more confident in our relationship. I felt like I could rely and depend on him. When we started planning our wedding, my ex asked about my dad, but I made it clear that I didn't want him there. He hadn't been part of my life for 7 years, and I wasn't ready to reconcile with him, especially not at my wedding. However, one day I came home to find my dad there, invited by my ex to bury the hatchet. I was shocked and devastated. My ex's actions just completely disregarded my feelings and boundaries. I couldn't believe he would do this knowing how I felt about my dad and without asking me first. My dad made a comment about how glad he was I came to my senses and how excited he was to go to my wedding, making suggestions that my half-brother could be the ring bearer. I asked my dad to leave and warned him not to contact me again. My ex was furious since he believed I should forgive my dad and work on repairing our relationship. But I don't understand why I should forgive him when he was the one who cut ties with me. More importantly, I couldn't forgive someone who hadn't even apologized for their past actions. He believed that enough time had passed to allow me to work on forgiving him, but I argued that it's not fair that I have to put in the work. My number hasn't changed, my dad hasn't done anything to show me that he's changed. Sure, he gave my mom the divorce, but he never apologized for any of the crap he pulled and was happy to go along with the facade of him being a guy who cheated and made a mistake, so he was vilified. I asked him how long he'd been in contact with my dad, and it turns out he'd been in contact with him for 6 months. I felt so disrespected and hurt by my ex's actions, I decided to call off the wedding and told him we needed to rebuild the trust and communication in our relationship before we got married. But my ex refused, saying that it was either we get married or break up, so I ended the engagement. He knew that I had issues with the lack of honesty and communication from so many people in my life, the decisions made on my behalf without regard for my feelings, and the years I spent trying to appease others. And yet by trying to force my father back into my life, it was like he was deliberately trying to set off my triggers. I still don't understand why he reached out to him if he said he understood my reasons for not wanting my dad there. I still love him, so it hurts, but I thought I did the right thing. Now it doesn't help that I'm getting so much hate from my ex's family, who are calling me names and blaming me for breaking his heart. They're calling me the asshole for being so sensitive about this and overreacting. With the amount of flack I'm getting, I'm starting to feel like the asshole. Did I do the right thing? Edit. A few people messaged me and asked me to update them. I was planning on deleting my account, but the fact that so many people took the time to give me advice and help me actually makes me feel better. I can't express how validating it feels to know that I made the right decision. I was contemplating going back to my ex, but now I realize he might not have been the nice guy everyone thinks he is. And truth be told, I was planning to stand up to myself to my ex's mom, but I lost my nerve because I started to think I was the asshole, and that's why I made the post. I also just started feeling like a jerk. I guess if you have a bunch of people telling you something, you start to believe it a little. I am going to contact my ex's mom and have a one-on-one with her. And I'm going to tell my ex he needs to move all of his stuff out of the apartment. It's been about a month since we broke up, so he needs to get his stuff out. I will update if anything comes from that, but if I don't have anything else to say, I'll delete this account. Thank you all for your support. Update 1, April 9, 2024, 6 days later. Just a quick update. I'm going back to therapy, but everyone who responded to my post really gave me the reassurance I did the right thing. My dad hasn't come by my apartment, but I'm planning to move out. I've been staying in a sublet apartment since I didn't renew my lease on my last place. Me and my ex plan to move in together. I'm moving in with my sister. She has a den in her house she's converting into a bedroom. It's adding much more time to my commute, but it'll do for now. I'm going to change my number, and I'm not planning to give it to my ex or his family, but I did want to reach out to his mom. We've been a part of each other's lives for a long time, but I wanted her to know that this wasn't how I wanted things to be. Of the people who contacted me, she was not aggressive towards me. I should have been more clear in my initial post. She was just very disappointed. My ex's dad, sister, cousins, and aunts were the ones harassing me. And I was blocking them, but they were using other numbers. Probably belonging to other family members or their partners, and they were making fake profiles online so they can message me through Instagram. Even if a profile is private, you can still receive messages. I called his mom, and she was cold, but I explained how hurtful their treatment of me was. She was apologetic but said she thinks people were just mad and didn't understand how I could just end our relationship because my ex asked if I wanted to invite my dad. I was confused and told her that he did ask me when we first got engaged. And I didn't immediately call off our relationship. I postponed the engagement because he straight up invited my dad despite me telling him I didn't want him there. I only ended the relationship because he gave me an ultimatum. She asked why I never said anything to anyone, and I told her because no one asked. I just got sent a bunch of hateful messages. Why would I respond to people who treated me like that? She was apologetic and told me she'd make sure her family knew. I told her it didn't really matter, but I just wanted her to know because she was important to me, and I thought maybe I was important to her too. She got really sad after that and started crying, so I guess she does care somewhat. I have gotten a few other texts from people, and they've been very apologetic too. I'm not expecting anything from those who haven't messaged me, but it's nice to know that there are some people who are willing to put their egos aside to apologize. I looked online but couldn't really find a response about how long my ex can keep his stuff at my place. When we first broke up, I sent him an email and text, but he never responded. So I tried calling him, emailed and texted him again, and mailed him a letter letting him know that he had 30 days to get his things with copies of my initial text and email asking for him to claim his items. I don't know if he got the letter, but yesterday, he texted me and asked me if when he came to pick up his things we could talk alone. I was hesitant, but I guess I really just wanted to put all of this behind me, and I want to make that clear to him in person. I told him we could meet in a public place, and he agreed. My brother drove me to a cafe this morning and waited on the outside patio while I went in to meet my ex. According to him, he got it in his head that he was going to be making a childhood dream of mine come true, which was having a real relationship with my dad. I did tell him once that when I was younger, and asked my dad to consider signing my mom's divorce papers, I hoped we could rebuild our relationship to the point where he can walk me down the aisle and dance with me at my wedding. But that was years ago, before my dad blocked me, before I learned the truth about his physical, mental, and emotional abuse toward my mom and siblings, and before I really came to terms with how manipulative and careless he'd been toward me. Plus, the whole thing was that I wanted to make sure that our relationship got to a point where he could come to my wedding. He didn't put in any effort or work to rebuild our relationship, so it makes no sense for him to just show up out of nowhere. He apologized and admitted that when he saw my reaction he knew he messed up, but he didn't know how to admit that. So he only gave me that ultimatum as a bluff. He never expected me actually break off the engagement, but he'd already dug himself so deep he didn't know what to do. And he said he lied to his family because he knew he was wrong and didn't want his family to hate him. He asked if we could work on our relationship and go to couples therapy. He told me we could start over, but I just said no. I don't think he had good intentions and pointed out, like so many others did, that he went against my wishes and brought my dad back into my life. He was 6 months in contact with an abuser and never told me. His ultimatum, the fact that he realized he was wrong and didn't apologize, and the fact that he lied to his family was all very manipulative. A few people pointed out he might have a savior complex. I've been reevaluating our relationship and I feel like that may be the case. Either way, none of that matters anymore. I don't want him in my life. I don't think he'll be trying to come back into my life anytime soon. He cares too much about appearances to try and pull anything. He's supposed to get his things tomorrow. My brother and uncle will be present and they're both big guys, and I know he's intimidated by them. I'm not planning to stay in the apartment in the meantime, and the only friend who knows where I'm going is my childhood friend of 20 years. I think that's it. Smile. Going to stay single for a while, go to therapy, and just stay active and enjoy life. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Well done. I don't know if you need therapy. You have stood up for yourself. You have handled the whole thing beautifully. Block all those people everywhere you can. Move on and have a great life. OP. Thanks. I think I just need to go back to therapy to work through this sudden change in my life, and the sudden appearance of my dad is bringing back a lot of bad memories and feelings. Plus, in reevaluating my relationship I realized that there were probably a lot of moments my ex was manipulating and gaslighting me. I didn't know how to recognize that, or maybe I did subconsciously and chose to ignore it. Either way, I tend to either go to one or two extremes. I get too independent, don't allow myself to get vulnerable, and not be transparent about my emotions. I think I exercise the right amount of self-preservation with how I handled the breakup and sticking to my boundaries. But in the future, I might end up going to the extreme again and keeping people out of my life, or I end up in a relationship with another manipulative person and ignore the signs. I still have stuff to work on, I guess. Comment 2. What really seals the breakup is the fact he lies to his family, and they attack you over it. Maybe you could have gotten past it all if you had a break and he talked to you instead of giving you an ultimatum. But having family attack you is just over the line. OP. Yeah, I feel like he told them because he knew they would attack me and make me feel like I was in the wrong. Like he was trying to break my self-esteem and fill my head with lies. It almost worked too, which is the crazy part. He didn't admit it, but I wouldn't put it past him considering everything else he did. What the heck was going through this dude's head? Like, you know how her relationship with her dad is, and you thought that inviting him to her wedding, the day that is supposed to be the best day of her life, would be the time to work on her relationship with her dad. And then when she gets mad about it you have your family harass her. I'm glad OP stood up for herself. I couldn't imagine being in a relationship with someone like this. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.